Two new polls out from CBS and NBC News show most Americans do not approve of how President Trump is doing his job. It's a different story with this base. The CBS News poll pegging his approval rating among Republicans at 91%, though. The new polls coming as Trump puts his focus.
It's pretty crazy. Virtually everything that I predicted would be unfolding is happening with spectacular speed. But I did not think it would happen this fast. I genuinely did not think that it would swing this fast. But to be fair, I also did not think Trump would fire off on all cylinders, push in every avenue. There's this poll that came out as well from Gallup. Is immigration a good thing for the USA? Yes, 79%, highest ever. No, 17%, lowest ever. To which I tweeted, you might have noticed that this number doesn't dip below 50%. It never dipped below America's views on immigration being a net positive has never dipped below 50%. Something I kept yelling at Dems throughout the election about. America is a nation of immigrants. Even at the peak of anti-immigrant sentiment, polls showed they favored conditional amnesty over mass deportation. That's it. I told you people were going to be very upset with Trump's mass deportation policies, and they haven't even kicked into the highest stage that he claimed he was going to kick it to. And the discontent is rising. Let's take a look at the two key groups that have turned on Trump since the election.
On deploying the National Guard onto the streets of D.C. while implementing hardline immigration tactics. CNN Chief Data Analyst Harry Enton is here to run the numbers on all of this, and we do have some fresh numbers today. So, Harry, what are they telling us?
Yeah, I think they're telling us what we know about the Trump presidency is that Americans don't like it. So why don't we just take a look at these new polling that we have, and he remains underwater. Look, the CBS News poll, look at that. He's 12 points underwater. You want to go over to NBC, you want a different network? You can go to a different network, but it's the exact same story. 14 points underwater, double digits on this. This has been the story throughout much of the Trump presidency. He remains underwater as we get past Labor Day, Jessica.
And just how consistent have Trump's ratings been?
Yeah, okay. So this to me was the fascinating thing because, you know, I come on either every Saturday or Sunday or sometimes like this weekend, both days, and I talk about, oh, Trump's approval rating, he's underwater. I come up with some witty line or some line I think is witty, like he's more underwater than the Little Mermaid or something like that. And I decided to actually look, okay, how long has this dude been underwater? All right, so let's take a look at it. All right, negative net approval rating for Trump. Every single day in my aggregate polls since March 12th. Since March 12th, in terms of number of days, 180 days in a row he has been underwater. That is basically half a year. You know, the NFL season started this week. You basically have to go back to the end of the last NFL season to find a day in which Trump was above water. The bottom line is he has been swimming with the fishes for a very long period of time, Jessica.
And what groups has he lost ground with?
Okay, so, you know, we're talking about the fact that he was last positive. You got to go back before March 12th. So what has changed? What has changed since February, which was the last full month in which he was above ground? Well, take a look here. Trump's net approval rating among age 18 to 29. We're looking at the CBS News poll, but it holds true in the average as well. He was +2 back in late February. Look at where he is now. My God, that is a 32-point drop since the beginning of this year. How about Hispanics? He was at -6, a little bit underwater, but not too bad. But look at where he is now, -34 points. That's what is that? That's a 28-point drop since February. These, of course, were two groups that he exceeded expectations with back in the 2024 election, did much better than the traditional Republican has this century. But now these groups have absolutely moved away from him, and he is way underwater, 30 points and 34 points underwater. Those two groups have moved away from him in tremendous fashion, and it goes a long way in explaining why his overall approval rating, his net approval rating, has fallen through the floor and been negative for such a long period of time, Jessica.
And what issues does he do well with?
Okay, so there are a few things that I think that are so important to figure out here. Okay, so we're talking about groups, right? Is there any place where Donald Trump does well with? Well, let's talk about issues first. Okay, Trump's net approval rating. I got crime, immigration, foreign policy, the economy, trade. There's a whole slew of red, and this isn't Republican red. This is negative red, Jessica Dean. -2 points, -3 points, -12 points, -14 points, -17 points. On all the key issues of the day, he is underwater, Jessica. No wonder you can't survive in a presidency having a positive net approval rating when you're underwater on all of these different issues. And, of course, crime and immigration were two of his best issues, and now he's underwater on all of them. And then, of course, the economy, which was the reason he was reelected in the first place. This is the one I really circle here. He's 14 points underwater, which basically looks pretty much like those CBS News and NBC News polls, which have him at -12 and -14 points. I'll point out one last little thing. I'm going to jump ahead a question because I just feel like I'm in such a roll, Jessica Dean. I just feel like the energy with me.
I fucking told you, man. I told you. I told you this was going to happen. Ages 18 to 34 have the Gallup poll now has a the lowest ever positive approval of capitalism. 42% have a negative approval of capitalism. Okay? Trends in America's positive ratings of capitalism and socialism. We got to get those numbers up, obviously. But for ages 18 to 34, -11%. As in, they have a higher they have a higher disapproval of capitalism than an approval of capitalism. 35 to 54, split 50 to 44 plus 6, and 55 plus 62 to 35 plus 24. Among those without a college degree, it is a 47-48 split, favoring the negative side. For those who have, for those devoid of a college education, who, you know, capitalism is fucking over even harder, they have a higher disapproval of capitalism than those who have a college degree. College graduates favor capitalism 58 and disfavor it by 39%. So whenever people fucking talk about how, like, oh, all these like socialists, all these anti-capitalists, like they're all fucking college graduates. They're all college children or whatever. That's not the case. College liberals have a higher chance of attaining jobs, keeping jobs, making more money in the long run, and therefore have a more positive opinion over it. Amongst Democrats, the negative opinion of capitalism is at 55%. 42% have a positive, so it's -13. For the GOP, it is obviously a +50, so we know who loves capitalism. And for independents, it's a +6. If you look at men broadly, it's a +31%. It's a +31 for capitalism. Amongst women, it's -6. College really do brainwash people into being liberals, but in the political definition sense, yeah. When people say college brainwashes people into becoming liberals, they don't realize that it's not like a normal liberal. It's liberal as the correct like right-wing political term, liberalism.
Let us stop you.
Thank you very much. So we see all this negative, but the thing that you pointed out at the beginning that I think is so important, what is the one saving grace for Donald Trump right now? And that is the Republican base. What are we talking about here? Well, take a look here. Republicans who approve of Trump. Well, in the CBS News poll back in February, look at this. It was 90%. Look at where it is now. You mentioned it at the top. It's at 91%. As long as this Republican base sticks with him, as long as he's hearing the good news from the conservative talk radio host, as long as he's hearing the good news from the folks out there on the right, he's going to think he has very strong support. So I don't think that Donald Trump is going to do anything differently as long as this 91% holds. And as I said, it's steady as ever because that's actually a point higher than it was in February, Jessica.
All right, Harry Enton.
Bro, this is exactly like Trump won now.
Running the numbers as always. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And let's bring in CNN senior political commentators David Urban and Van Jones. David is a Republican strategist. Van worked for the Obama administration, and they've both held numerous other positions since then, but that at least gives you a good working idea. David, let's start first with you. Sometimes I have to prompt you with a whole question, but Harry just went through a lot of data. What did you think about all that?
Yeah, listen, so Harry's great at that. And what he didn't tell you, though, and what Harry would admit to, is that Donald Trump's ceiling, ever since he's been a candidate, has been 44%. That's the number in that YouGov poll that just came out this morning. The CBS YouGov poll is at 44%. By the way, that's up 2% since the last poll in July. And so he's consistently polled that 44% approval rating. And so, you know, that's kind of where he was at when he won the election in 24. It's where he's been at consistently. And as Harry points out, he's up a percentage point with Republicans. And so I don't think that, you know, that Rome is burning here. I think that Trump is continuing to do what he did. He's delivering on the messages that on the immigration and cracking down on crime that won him the election in 24, and he's being rewarded among the base for it.
What do you think, Van?
Well, look, I think that if I were Republicans, I'd be worried about that Latin number. They scared the living bejeebers out of us in November when you saw this stampede of brown voters rushing to Donald Trump. We said, holy crap. And that was the whole ballgame. And then you got a bunch of young people as well. And so that's why you've seen the therapy bills for Democrats going through the roof, because we had this fantasy that we were always going to be the party of black, brown, and young voters. And suddenly we're just the party of African-American voters, and even we didn't come out as strong as we usually do. Trump could have kept all that.
Yeah, nothing to work on there, by the way. Nothing to consider. Nothing to work on. No issues here. Democrat base of support capsizing in and of itself, but no reason to ask questions.
To talk to you, let's start with the president's overall approval
and his
numbers.
Analysis. Gen Z women, the most anti-Trump group. That's not surprising. They were the most anti-Trump group even during the election.
In this poll, do most Americans approve of the job he's doing?
Yeah, well, you showed some of those issues a minute ago, and what that adds up to is a 43% approval rating in our new poll. This is a Decision Desk poll. Again, this is all adults here. This is voters, potential voters, so we're kind of casting a wide net, but a 43% approval rating for Trump. That is pretty much at the level it's been now for a few months for much of this second term for Donald Trump. And even it's sort of been similar to the level we saw back during his first term. And one of the key ingredients to this, you mentioned too, the economy. That's the issue voters cite more than any other as the most important issue to them right now. And when you ask folks how Trump is doing specifically on inflation and the cost of living, again, we've seen this for a few months now. He's under 40%. He's at 39%.
No amount of we're really sticking it to the transgenders is going to make people feel like they have more money in their pockets. Okay? Like there's no you can't like trans your way out of an affordability crisis. Okay, it's just not gonna fucking happen.
On inflation, and that is a departure from his first term when his best marks tended to come on those subjects.
You talked about people, of course.
Francesca Albanese tweeted about this, bro. Oh shit, Francesca Albanese tweeted about it. My bad, bro. Let me cover it right now. Shut the fuck up. I said I'm gonna get to it. Just fucking Jesus Christ. Why is this so difficult for people to comprehend?
Thinking about inflation and the cost of living, what other important issues are Americans thinking about as most important for them, and how do they think the president's doing?
He gets his best marks on border security and immigration, where he exceeds his approval rating there. We also asked this time about deportation, so not just border security and immigration, but we asked about deportations as well. His numbers fell a little bit, but he's 47% approval on border and immigration. He's 43% approval when you ask about deportations.
I also want to ask you about something that the president talks about. In some ways, he was appealing directly, I think a lot of people thought, to young men. So this poll shows that there's a wide gender gap, apparently, among Gen Z Americans. How wide is that gap, and what's fueling it?
Well, it's a major divide that has to do with politics, but I think takes in a lot more. That's the surprising finding in this poll for us. So let me take you through it. Gen Z, we're talking about adults under 30 years old, sort of the new rising generation here. And take a look here, just when it comes to attitudes towards Donald Trump. Again, we told you, with all voters nationally, with all Americans nationally, I should say, he's at 43% job approval. With men under 30, 47%, so a little bit better. But with women under 30, look at this, way under his national level, just 26% approval for Trump right there. So that's one of the things we find. Not only is there a huge difference in Gen Z between men and women when it comes to their attitudes towards Trump and politics, this group right here, Gen Z women, is the most anti-Trump group you're going to find any generation, gender combination. Most anti-Trump, most politically progressive, and these big differences between men and women, we saw them. Look, again, this is the rising generation, the emerging generation. We thought we'd get a portrait. We asked about some basic questions about what they think about life, about the future, about priorities. And take a look at the difference we found here when you do gender and politics. Again, this is just Gen Z here. Look at
This was really interesting. First of all, girly pop nation, rise up. Okay. Girly pop nation, rise the fuck up. Straight up. Secondly, amongst the Gen Z women, they've been the most steady anti-Trump coalition in the country. The Gen Z numbers that actually swung dramatically from being firmly anti-Republican to getting close to like a 50-50 split in the Trump direction came mostly from men, Gen Z men. But even then, as I told you, they will realize that it's still business as usual and that none of the things that the Trump administration claimed it would do for these guys is going to happen. And therefore, they're also going to inevitably experience tremendous discontent. And it's already happening. So the Gen Z support numbers have diminished. Okay, chatters, being a liberal is not woke just because you are a woman. I mean, it doesn't matter. This isn't to say that they are all libbed up or whatever. Yeah, I already covered this as well. Earlier today, he's lost tremendously from February till now with both the Hispanic voting bloc and also with the age 18 to 29. They only care about abortion. That's not true. No, that's not true either. Because this accounts for what? What percentage of white women then? What, like, do white women not care about abortion? I guess they don't. No. No, women are more progressive. Younger women are more progressive in their politics than men are. It's reflected in virtually every other demographic polling that's conducted, every like psychographic profile report that comes out. They're just more progressive.
this. We gave them a whole bunch of choices here about what do you think defines success in life to you? Asking a basic question.
Left is gender essentialism. This isn't gender essentialism. It has nothing to do with that. I suspect that the more progressive aspect of their politics is because, by and large, first of all, we're looking at data, not gender essentialism. This is slated to change, as evidenced by the fact that it did change. Like Gen Z approvals of Donald Trump swung by 30% by 30 points. That's huge. That's a huge shift. Clearly, it's not essentialism in any capacity. But the reason why I personally think this is the case is because, like, women have better educational attainment as it stands, and they have a better job opportunities as it stands currently. So it causes them to have, I guess, a more like a different approach. But I think education probably plays a formative role in their development, in their opinions, in the way that they see the world. But the reason why you see this kind of like gender divide in politics comes from not women being more empathetic or whatever, but instead men having overall a sense of entitlement around like what society was supposed to be designed on and what they haven't actually achieved. When you're told that, like, as a man, certain things are supposed to come for you, and then you don't actually get any of those expected outcomes, and you can't get a decent job, and your educational attainment is worse off, then you are going to find yourself at the mercy of reactionary politics. I think that's where it comes from.
Question. Gen Z men under 30 who voted for Donald Trump, their number one answer was having children. That makes, in their view, more than anything else for a successful life. Gen Z women under 30 who voted for Harris, that same option, having children, dead last. Look at that. First in one group, last in the other. Being married right at the bottom there, too, for Gen Z women who voted for Harris.
Also, it's really funny because they present this as like this is, dude, I mean, obviously I looked at these numbers before. What I found really interesting was that men that voted for Harris, as opposed to women that voted for Harris, or not as opposed to men that voted for Trump, their priorities were almost identical to the women that voted for Harris. One other thing that actually was important here to address is that outside of the men that voted for Trump, women who voted for Trump also had similar priority structure to the women that voted for Harris. So it's the only group, Gen Z men who voted for Trump, that have this like obsession with having children being like a top thing. Is really interesting. Achieving financial independence obviously is still an incredibly high priority. Obviously, that's hugely important. It's hugely important. It's all about the economy. It's all about getting a good job.
Being married near the top for men. And how about this for a difference, too? Having emotional stability, one of the most important factors in a successful life, cited by Gen Z women who voted for Harris, dead last when you're talking about Gen Z men who voted for Trump. These are basic core priorities, concepts about what makes life a successful one, and they couldn't be more at odds in some of these cases between these two groups. I think that was the most surprising finding in this poll, Yamiche.
Wow, Steve, that is incredible to see Gen Z men saying that having children's number one and Gen Z women saying that that's dead last. A great day to have you at the big board. Thank you so much, Steve.
And even ask what your priorities, ask what you say are signs of a successful life. Many probably don't see it as a marker of success because it's not hard to have a child. Yeah. Where's the poll? I want to look at the polls a little bit further as well. Like the Twitter link. Oh, here it is. Thank you. RNBC News Desk decision poll asked Gen Z adults, 18 to 29-year-olds, what they consider important to success in life. The combination of gender and politics are produced two very different sets of priorities. For men who voted for Trump, 34% said having children is what they consider important to a successful life. For women who voted for Harris, the number one response at 51% was fulfilling job/career. But obviously, financial independence and fulfilling job/career is still almost as equally as important as having children for men who voted for Trump as well. Okay? Financial independence and fulfilling job and a career is almost as important for men who voted for Trump as is having children. For women who voted for Harris, fulfilling job and career is 51%, and it's almost as important as having money to do the things you want. Okay? So ultimately, it doesn't really matter. But as far as women who voted for Trump, look at that. Women who voted for Trump said financial independence is 40%. So this is what I find very interesting, which is that women, regardless of their political identity, care about financial independence. Okay? That's the number one thing that they care about. Men who voted for Kamala Harris also care about having a fulfilling job and a career at super high rates. The only group that has the number one thing that they care about being having children is men who voted for Donald Trump. I do still think it's ultimately all the same. Financial independence, having a fulfilling job and career, these things mean the same for the most part. It's still important for men who voted for Trump as well. Financial independence is 33% versus having children is at 34%. That's not that significant of a difference. This shows you exactly what the problem is for many Gen Z, something that I've repeated over and over again, which is that their issues are born out of their lack of hope for a better tomorrow. They don't have good jobs. They don't have good opportunities. They don't feel like they can achieve the number one thing that they care about, which is financial independence, okay? Or having a good job, a good paying job. It's that simple.